No, let me say that different. Y'all was missing us by not being here.
Yeah.
2 Samuel chapter 9. We are glad Cody made it. We understand they had that service for the firemen this morning. No more excuses, Cody. 2 Samuel chapter 9. We're going to read the first 13 verses. I know it's the whole chapter. There's 13 verses in this chapter, and I'm not going to pronounce all the names just right. But we're at Wallville, all right? I don't know if anybody else here could either, so that's the only thing I can take comfort in knowing. 2 Samuel chapter 9, verse 1, And David said, Is there yet any that is left of the house of Saul, that I may show him kindness for Jonathan's sake? And there was in the house of Saul a servant, whose name was Ziba. And when they had called him unto David, the king said unto him, Art thou Ziba? And he said, Thy servant is he. And the king said, Is there not yet any of the house of Saul, that I may show the kindness of God unto him? Ziba said unto the king, Jonathan hath yet a son, which is lame on his feet. Verse 4, And the king said unto him, Where is he? And Ziba said unto the king, Behold, he is in the house of Machir. Hold on, the fan turned my page. He's in the house of Machir. Well, there we are. The son of Amiel in Lodibar. Verse 5, Then King David fetched him out of the house of Machir, the son of Amiel from Lodibar. Now when Mephibosheth, the son of Jonathan, the son of Saul, was coming to David, he fell on his face and did reverence. And David said, Mephibosheth. And he answered, Behold, thy servant. And David said unto him, Fear not, for I will surely show thee kindness for Jonathan, thy father's sake, and will restore thee all the land of Saul thy father. And thou shalt eat bread at my table continually. And he bowed himself and said, What is thy servant, that thou shouldest look upon such a dead dog as I am? Then the king called to Ziba, Saul's servant, and said unto him, I have given unto thy master's son all that pertained to Saul and to all his house. Thou therefore and thy sons and thy servants shall till the land for him, and thou shalt bring in the fruits, that thy master's son may have food to eat. But Mephibosheth, thy master's son, shall eat bread always at my table. Now Ziba had 15 sons and 20 servants. Then said Ziba unto the king, According to all that my lord the king hath commanded his servant, so shall thy servant do. As for Mephibosheth, said the king, he shall eat at my table, as one of the king's sons. And Mephibosheth had a young son, whose name was Micah. And all that dwelt in the house of Ziba were servants unto Mephibosheth. So Mephibosheth dwelt in Jerusalem, for he did eat continually at the king's table, and was lame on both his feet. What a man. Y'all can be seated. Thank you for standing. And I've looked at this, and I've been looking at this for a little bit, and I didn't know for sure when I'd preach it. And just this afternoon, I've been kind of feeling it, but this afternoon, hey, I want to tell you, we had the longest time to take a nap than we've had in a while. God, so many was gone this morning. Cody, we just had a regular service, more of a regular service, and we was home by 12:40. Man, I had lunch and was kicked back by 1:05. I'm not used to that, but about 3 o'clock, I woke up, man, kind of jerked awake, and this was back on my mind. I looked at some of this a little bit, and I was praying some. But we know, and I don't know how many of us know really a whole lot about Mephibosheth, but the Bible said he was lame on both of his feet. He is a cripple. Had to be carried everywhere he went. And if you back up and read where the accident happened, Mephibosheth was a child, an infant maybe. And the nursemaid, when they was fleeing, Mephibosheth's nursemaid picked him up and ran, trying to protect him, and she tripped and fell. And simplifying it a little bit there, but she fell on Mephibosheth, and it made him paralyzed, so he is a cripple. And Mephibosheth Just give me just a few minutes here. Mephibosheth was a grandson of King Saul. So he was in line, if life would have treated it right, or we would say maybe even fair, and Mephibosheth might have been a king at one time. And I don't know if he would have, but he was in that line there to be in place to be there eventually. But we look at this, and David is king. And David asked in verse 1, is there yet any that is left of the house of Saul? Now, if I'm going to rabbit trail for just a second, King Saul, hated David. It wasn't a dislike. It wasn't an irritation. It was hate. King Saul tried to kill David more than once. David was trapped in a cave. King Saul was there at the entrance of it. David's servant said, hey, he's right here, kill him. And it'd be self-defense. And I don't know, I'm not sure how the Lord would have looked at it, but I would have said, serves you right, sucker. You know, don't fall asleep on the job. You know, and maybe that's not the right way to look at it, but that's human flesh and our desires rise up. But David said, and I'm going to paraphrase here, but David said, I can't do it because I cannot touch God's anointed. King Saul was anointed of God at one time. He was there, and God had said, hey, you're one of mine. And now here's the rabbit trail. Just because we don't like somebody, we got to be careful. Me included. There's some folks that I feel like may have done us wrong. And I kind of want to say, serves you out, sucker. Slash the tires. You know? But we can't do that. We got to have the right heart and right attitude. David even prayed in the book of Psalms, create me a right spirit, O God. Renew in me a right spirit. Create me a clean heart. That's how David prayed it. All right, back to my message. I'm going to get sidetracked there. But we look at this, and King Saul, or David, King David rather, had asked, is there any of the house of Saul left? Now again, Saul, or David rather, would have had a right not to ever look back at King Saul's house. He wouldn't have ever had to say, bring Mephibosheth, or King Saul's grandson. The Lord had removed King Saul. King Saul and Jonathan died in battle. And they was not king no more. God had anointed David to be king. Samuel went to Jesse's house and anointed David to be king. Long before David became king. And I'm fixing to get sidetracked. But there's going to be things that God has anointed us to do. But long before David became king, he had to fight the lion and the bear. Before he became king, he had to fight the giant. And all of that was in preparation to make David king. But David said, he asked the question, is there anybody left of the house of Saul that I can show kindness for Jonathan's sake? And we know, we just read it, but they said there is a young man named Mephibosheth of the house of Ziba. He said he's there. Mephibosheth was Jonathan's son. He said he's there. David said, bring him to me. Mephibosheth bowed on his face and said, and worshiped and did reverence. David said, Mephibosheth. He answered and said, behold, thy servant. What a place to be in. What a place. David could have just executed Mephibosheth. He could have cast him out. But David looked at that, and I feel like David said, I'm going to show kindness because God has shown kindness to me. Now bear with me for a minute. If you're writing a service now, don't write a title yet. I want to get there. But David looked at this, I feel like, and he looked at Mephibosheth and thought, man, look at where God has brought us. I feel like David looked at Mephibosheth, maybe remembered. I mean, you can look at Hezekiah. If Cole was nowhere around, you can look at Hezekiah and think he's Cole's. No question. You know, he looks just like him. And we was talking on the way home this morning that we seen Raiden, a little bit of Raiden in Charm. You know, and that's scary. For charm. But let me tell you, I feel like David looked at Mephibosheth and said, I can see my friend Jonathan.
Yeah.
And I feel like in David's mind, he had remembered all the things that God had done for him and Jonathan. He remembered how Jonathan had went and he said, I'll see if my dad's still after to kill you, and I'll shoot the arrows out there. If it's before you, I'll say, come closer, it's here. If it's past you, I'll say, it's further, keep going. You know, and Jonathan was a friend of David. Jonathan had worked for it and had tried to nourish that friendship. But Jonathan died, and here, David, I feel like David was looking at this in verse 5 and 6, and thought, man, this is my friend. This is what God has done. And I know, hey, we know that Jonathan was dead. We know that friendship was cut short due to death, and Jonathan is a memory. But he looked at Mephibosheth, and I feel like David looked at that and thought of all the memories. If David was Joseph, he would have been driving down the road looking at Mephibosheth and thinking out loud, and the family would have said, we've heard that story before. I'm not talking to y'all. I'm talking to my other personality. You know, I've got a few. But we look at that, and I feel like David was thinking, man, I remember the friendship me and Jonathan had. I feel like David looked at Mephibosheth and thought, man, I can see, I can remember, I can almost hear his voice saying, David, I love you. And I know, maybe they hugged, maybe they was huggers, I don't know. And he wouldn't have been Joseph if he was, but maybe they thought, man, maybe David thought I could just see my friend Jonathan and his son. But if the Lord will help us for a little bit, we'll look at that last verse, and then we're going back up to verse 7. That last verse, it said, and Mephibosheth was lame on both his feet. He was a cripple. He couldn't walk. He couldn't wait on himself. I don't know. He probably had to have help getting dressed. He couldn't go plow the fields. He couldn't go to battle like all the other young men did. And Mephibosheth, I'm sure, thought, my life is over. Everything that I've wanted to do is not going to ever happen because I'm a cripple. And I know I told us this morning, I was supposed to be a millionaire, having a fancy car, having perfect children, and they're just about there. But perfect children, heating air and air conditioner in the truck, and all of this working, and and here we are at 38 plus, and we've got a house on the hillside, but it's not a mansion. And we've got our children, the air conditioner is working, thank the Lord for that now. But I've looked at all of that, and I feel like David, or Mephibosheth rather, thought, what good am I now? And I do have a couple of notes on my phone. My phone's over there. But I do feel like Mephibosheth thought, man, I'm a cripple. I can't do nothing. I'm old. I can't do nothing. I can't shoot the hoops like I one time did. I'm big. I'm overweight. I can't run. If you run, don't fall in front of me. That's my defense. But we look at all of that. We can't do what we used to. And even the devil will get up in our ear and tell us that nobody loves you, as we've heard tonight from 2 or 3 people that's testified that God don't love us. Nobody cares. And we've heard that. How many times have we heard that because of who we are and where we've came from? God don't love us. And I'll tell you, I know we've heard it, especially in this political environment. And you can get on Facebook, you can read news reports, and everybody knows everything about President Trump. Or the other way, President Biden, whoever's in office. Man, we would never elect him. And they're down in the Christians, why are you supporting a felon, a pedophile? I mean, I don't know what all's going on. There might be some truth to it. But I've also looked at it that God took David, a cheater, a murderer, an adulterer, and made him king. God took somebody that disobeyed, and I can't remember the saying, but God told him, He said, you don't cut your hair, you don't drink strong drink, and you don't touch dead animals. And what did he do? He did all three of them. And God used him. His name was Samson. And God used him. Hey, we don't choose who God uses. Lord, help me to stay on topic here. But God is one to use us if we'll surrender our life to Him. We may have done some things that was done in our past. We may have said some things that we wish we wouldn't have ever said. But God can still use us. Mephibosheth was a cripple, not because of his doing, but he was still a cripple. He was sitting there. He was just trying to grow up as any little kid would. And they ran from battle, and they tripped and fell. He became a cripple. He still grew up. I don't know if he is feeling sorry for himself. I don't know if he is mad at David. I don't know what all went through his mind. But he was still a cripple. But one day, David called him, and he went and he bowed before David and done reverence. And he said, behold, thy servant. How many of us, when we realize, we look around, and I know we've all prayed, you pray any time at all, or any length of time. You live, you're going to go through things, and you're going to say, God, why did you let me do this? Why did you let me go through this? Now, I want to make a side note again here real quick. I don't think you just sit and question God. I don't think you argue with Him because He knows more than we do. But even the Lord, Jesus, hung on the cross and said, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? I believe we do go to Him without a question and understanding. Okay? But now I feel like every one of us at times has looked around and said, God, why did you let me go through this? If you was really God, you would have stopped it. I mean, if you was really God, December 7th, 99, why didn't He keep me awake when I'm going 70 miles an hour? If He was really God, why did He let the bad things happen? If He was really God, and I want to be careful, but if He was really God, He could have spoke the word on January the 7th, 2017, and Mom would have got up, healed, made whole. I was trying to say made whole. But where's God at? When we look around at our life, and we've seen, and I don't know, I'm sure we've all seen it, the video clips, because, everybody hates Donald Trump. They're protesting because they like to protest, I guess. And they're blocking the roads and they get run over. And then they say, why'd you do that? Well, don't get in the road. Dumb. I mean, protest on the sidewalk. Whatever. And we wonder, where's God at? Even in the political environment, we look around and we see God could speak the word. But we also, Lord help me to stay on this. But we look at this and we see that Mephibosheth is brought to the king's house, a cripple, worthless. He cannot go to battle. He cannot plow the fields. What can Mephibosheth do except sit in a seat and take up space? What can he do except take somebody that's on payroll to have to help move him around? Where if he wants to go to the kitchen, hey, chop, chop, pick me up, let's go. If we want to go to the living room, chop, chop, let's go to the couch. However it is, we know how it is. There's somebody always, that's all he's good for. Now hear me out for a minute. And I know I'm putting this on YouTube. But let me tell you, I feel like that Mephibosheth thought I'm wounded and worthless. I'm wounded and nobody wants me. And even the littlest things. And when Brandon was testifying, I thought back to Dad. He was there in the Blanchard nursing home. And I called him, or maybe I went and seen him that day. And he told me, he said, son, He said, I've got a message. He's actually in the VA hospital at this time. But he said, I've got a message. I've been praying about it and reading the Bible. And when I get out of here, I want to preach. I said, okay, you get out of here and you can preach. And then we didn't really think he would, or I didn't anyway. He couldn't move his legs, couldn't pick them up and all of this. But I said, okay, when you get out. But he got to reading about Noah. And he said, if I remember all of his words right, and again, I've got that in my notes on my phone. But he said, I've been up here in the hospital for however long, and I feel like God has forgotten me. Feel like God it's just where's God at? But he said, I've got to reading about in the book of Genesis, isn't it, about Noah and the flood, and how Noah was on the ark and the flood was there, and nobody's out there. There's only 8 souls on that boat. His wife, three sons and 3 daughters-in-law. There's 8 people on that boat. And he said, and Noah, that day that the ark landed and the bird went out and didn't come back, he said that Noah said, or the Bible said, and God remembered Noah. And he told me, he said, if I get out of here, I want to preach that God remembered Al in the VA hospital. We look around and think, where's God? Even Mephibosheth, I'm a cripple. What good am I going to do, King David? But I feel like for just a little bit, if the Lord will help us, preach for just a few more minutes. I want to preach wounded, but still wanted. Wounded, but still wanted. Hey, we look at Mephibosheth and think, man, he's a cripple. We look at Grandma, if I can borrow Grandma for a minute. She's not going to get out there and play 9 square. If she does, she's not going to spike it. All right? She's not going to get out there probably and run a race for us. But she's still wanted. Because we see that God has got things for us that we seem like is no good. Now I stopped at courtesy of Lindsay Super C on the way to church, and I bought a tomato. Man, that looks good, don't it? I thought about bringing some salt in and just eating it. But it's a tomato. It looks ripe. It feels pretty good. And it looks like we can use it for a little sandwich, a cheeseburger. You can use it for a lot of things. You can slice it and put it in there, whatever you want. And hey, it looks good. But I also bought another tomato, and I don't like playing with food. You putting your hands in food is nasty. I don't know how y'all cook and all this, but here's another tomato that's not the same shape. It's not the same place. What good is this going to do? It's all cut up and it's beat up, and I squished it. I threw it on the table a few times and, hit it. What good is that tomato compared to this one? It looks good. This one looks good. This one looks like it might just go in the trash. But if you go around, I don't know who all does it, but that tomato can be put in and make hot sauce out of it. It can be put in other stuff and be blended in there and made, all because it's still wanted. We still want that tomato. Sometimes we are born like this and we feel like this. Hey, we might be wounded in battle. We may have had the devil come against us. We may have had the devil tell us, you're not worth nothing. If I can borrow Caleb respectfully, your right hand can't do nothing. You're not going to spike 9 square. You're not going to run the race. You're not going to do this. But what is it? God's called us. He didn't call everybody to be Joseph. He called you to serve the Lord. He said, you serve the Lord with all thine heart. Lean not unto thine own understanding. We might be wounded, but God still wants us. He's called us to come up a little bit higher, come out from among them and be ye separate. Wow, we might be crippled, we might be wounded, but David told him, he said, fear not, I will restore thee all the land of Saul thy father, and thou shalt eat bread. Why? Because he realized, I'm wounded. Nobody, I can't do nothing like them, but I'm still wanted of God. Sierra and Justin has 2 more services, Thursday night services to be deacon. And in 3 weeks, July the 2nd, Kayla and Terrell will be deacons. That ought to be interesting. But let me tell you, we might be wounded. You might not be a preacher. You might not be a singer. You might not be nothing. But God still wants you. God still said, I've got a work for you. I've got a job that I need you to do. We might be wounded. The devil may have came against us. The devil may have shot those fiery darts at us. But we might be wounded in this world. But if I can borrow Cole and Brittany again, look what God's done for us. Look how God's turned us around. He set our feet on the rock, and even Cody. Look what God's done. If He can do it for them, hey, we're still wanted of God. We still need to come before His throne. Lord, it's me. Let me do reverence before you. The songwriter said, and I bowed on my knees and cried, holy. Hey, what is it? He said, I went to that city called Glory, so bright and so fair. Hey, I know I'm not worthy to go there. But when Jesus died on the cross, He said, whosoever. Hey, I know I'm wounded. I know I'm not worth much. Nobody's called me to preach camp meetings. Nobody's called me to do a singing. And in fact, the barber told me to hush when I was singing to him. But let me tell you, we're still wanted of God, because greater is He that's in us than he that's in the world. Don't let the devil talk you out of it. Don't let the devil say, pick up that bottle. Don't let the devil say, pick up that again. Because God wants you for the kingdom. We have got to strive. We've got to strive to enter in. We've got to strive to go there. Because we may not be whole like that, but we're still hot sauce. We're still spicy. Let me tell you, God will work with us if we just come before Him. God will say, hey, what do you need? And where is it? Isn't it in the book of Peter where he said He's called some to be preachers, some to be teachers, some evangelists, and some this and that. Hey, let me tell you, God will use you if we let Him. God will use, hey, if Mephibosheth, in verse 6, I believe if Mephibosheth would have came to David and crossed his arms and said, what do you want? David might would have said, I've got a sack out back, go sit down. I don't know, he might not have. But we know, you know, if your body language will tell a lot about you. They say if you have confidence and your hands are in your pocket, your thumb will be in your pocket. But if your thumbs are hooked on your belt loop in your pocket, you don't have confidence. You're not confident in yourself. I don't know if it is or not. But your arms crossed means you're upset. I believe if Mephibosheth would have been carried in there. What now? You took me out of my place. I've got a comfortable couch. It's just, I've worked on it for years. But David or Mephibosheth came and he fell on his face and did reverence. What is it? I believe we need to come to God with a broken heart, a contrite spirit, David said. Lord, let us come boldly. And even, who was it? Was it Mordecai that told Esther, you're here for today. Go boldly before the throne. Hey, walk in there with confidence. And we told our children as they're trying to get jobs and interviews, hey, you walk in there, look them in the eyeball, shake their hands with a firm grip, and say, hey, what can I do for you? Hey, what is it? We know that God's calling us. We've got to go boldly. Lord, it's me again. I'm here. What do you need us to do? Lord, help us. We look around, we're wounded. We look at that and go, man, Lord, I don't know what else I can do. There's been some things that's been said to all of us at some point in our life that we could have said, you know, I'm not going back there. Somebody texted Charity's brother and said, if your mom and dad could see you, they'd be ashamed of you. I texted him and said, who said that? Because I'm going to go get them too, especially if it's a preacher. And it wasn't. And we know them not just real well. And let me tell you, God's still got to work for them. We got to go before God and say, Lord, it's me. Lord, you see all my faults and failures. You see my attitude. You see my ego. You see how, Carlos and Brandy's rubbing off on Cole and Brittany. Now Brittany's got a hurt wrist and Cole has got a hurt thumb, and they said he cut it and whatever. I don't know if I believe all that, but let me tell you, if we still go before God, Lord, would you use my hurt wrist and all? Let me tell you, God's going to raise up a generation of people that the devil can't stop. Hey, I've looked around us, and I'm going to use another illustration here in just a minute. And that tomato's going home with me. So, but I read in Deuteronomy chapter 6, isn't it? No, that's not it. Chapter 2. But he said, Deuteronomy 2 and 7, he said, for the Lord thy God hath blessed thee in all the works of thy hand. He knoweth thy walking through this great wilderness. These 40 years the Lord thy God hath been with thee. Thou hast lacked nothing. I believe if we come before God, He's going to raise up a generation that's saying, hey, we may be crippled, we may be wounded, but God still wants us. I like the testimony that Brittany said, where Raiden prayed. I don't want to go there just yet. She prayed, and she's with us in the house of God. Raiden, come here. Raiden, come here. Come here. Hey, we look around us and we see God's going to raise up a generation. He's going to do something, and it might be with her. This 10-year-old or however old she is. Oh, the 9-year-old, excuse me. But God's going to raise up if we come and say, Lord, I want to serve you. I want to live for you all the days of my life. Hey, Brandon stood and testified. And he told us, he said, he prayed and said, and God said, where are you at? And he read that verse there in Isaiah. Can a woman forget her second child? But know that, I will not forget thee. He's raising up a generation. And he's raising, I know he looks like he's 15. He's 12. But he's raising up somebody. Saying, hey, Lord, here am I. Let me serve you. I may be broken, but I'm still wanted. God still wants to use us wherever we are. God still wants to use us. We may be broken, wounded, but we're still wanted. And we look around us. What can Raiden do? She can't sing. She can't preach. She can't do a lot of stuff that I do. But God's still going to use Raiden. Hey, I don't know. She can sing. She does good. All right. She can't play a guitar. She can pick around on the piano a little bit. I heard her the other night. But let me tell you what God's raising up. We might be wounded, but God still wants us. And I'm going to get a song if you would. And I just wanted these two of my favorites tonight anyway. But God is raising them up. Now, where's she at? Is she awake? Mackenzie, borrow, what's her name? Harper. Borrow Harper for me if we can steal her. Look at this. And I don't want to say anything out of line, so tell me to hush if I need to hush. But we look where God's brought Cole and Brittany. How God's helped them. And nothing against these other children. Beautiful children. But God has raised up at Harper. God's put them together in a product of what God is doing. Hey, I know she's only, 4 months? 4 months? 5? Not where she can't walk. All she can do is scream. And the smile and spit her pacifier out. She done that this morning. But God is raising her up. God is raising us up. Hey, we may not be whole. This may not be us. We may be beat up. Not good. Don't look like we're good for nothing. But God still wants us. Kayla, don't let the devil tell you that you're not worth anything. Cody, don't let the devil talk you out of what God's gave you. Because God has done some things. How was it? And I don't know what he mentioned it, but he said, greater is he that's in us than he that's up there. He is doing something that only God can do. He is doing something that only God can work out. We may not see the product. All we see is Harper. She can't walk. She can't talk. She can't roll. She cries. and makes a mess. She does this and that. Somebody has to get her. Somebody has to move her. But hey, God's still going to use her. Because at one time, that's where I was. I might have been that level. I don't look it now. But God still wants to. If you feel like standing, would you stand? God's using us. We're wounded, but wanted. Right? When you do go back, remember Jesus loves you. And there's nothing the devil can do. Because you're one of God's. God is calling a generation to come out from among them. I know we all want to be millionaires, don't we? We all want to be rich like Norma Jean. We all want to sing like I do. But God is calling a generation to stand up. Say, Lord, here am I. And I know my children, there's 4 of them. They've been here all their life. Sierra and Mackenzie and Melanie and Brandon. And then there's Kayla and Terrell and Justin is here. We're missing Sammy. And I'm about all they've known as far as a pastor. But God is calling them to go to higher heights and deeper depths. He's calling little Cole, Hezekiah, Willow, and Rayden, and Harper, because God's going to use Rayden. And I don't know, I'm not saying, I'm not prophesying here, but it might be that Rayden in a year or so tells Kayla and Sierra to get out of the way, and you want to lead singing. It may be that Hezekiah, and I like hearing him sing, and I love it when he's done singing, when he goes, yay. And this morning he said, I love you. It might be he stands up and said, let me tell you what God's done for me. Yeah. He may never know what God has brought Cole and Brittany from. And praise God for it. But God's raising up a generation. And He's raising us up. We're wounded. We're not whole. But we're still wanted. Yeah. Hey. That homemade hot sauce, you can't get any better. But let me tell you, whatever it is, I may be in this shape, but God's still going to use me. Because I fell on my face and I did reverence to the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. I know I'm not meaning to keep you standing, but I looked around and thought, Lord, if we can do this, if you can call, and I know y'all may not believe this all the way, but I've always been pretty shy and backwards. And I know that's hard to believe maybe. But in school, I doubt I said 10 words in school. And I didn't say a whole lot. But let me tell you, if God can bring us here, God can use you. And I don't know, I know Carlos and Brandy likes to talk. I've heard them. But it might be that God is working them. Lord, create and prepare me. Yeah. And I know the song said, prepare me to be a sanctuary, but Lord, prepare me. Yes. You know the prophetess Anna? You heard of the prophetess Anna in the Bible? Matthew chapter 2. I think it's Matthew chapter 2. It might be Luke 2. But one of those. The prophetess Anna was in the temple for 87 years. An old lady. And she came and found the child Jesus, the baby Jesus, and lifted him up and said, Lord, this is what I've been waiting for. But she was in that temple for 87 years preaching and telling the people that came in about the works of God. Telling them what God's done. Father, we love you. Thank you for your love and your mercy. Lord, help us to raise. Help us to be where you want us to be. I know I may be wounded. I know I may be hurt. But you still want me. You still want to use us. You want to do things with us that the world said we're not worthy. But God looked down and seen us and said there's a child that's worthy. I'm just calling us to a little bit higher. To a little bit higher. Lord, we give you all the praise, all the glory, all the honor. One more thing real quick. John the Revelator was cast on the island of Patmos. And history says he was boiled in oil. And I don't know, in the history, one historian said he is blind. I don't know all about that, but he is cast from Isle of Patmos for preaching. But John the Revelator, the Bible said in Revelation chapter 1, I got in the Spirit on the Lord's day, and I heard behind me John write, I'm an Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end. Somebody that's wounded and cast out for no good. God said, right, and he wrote the book of Revelation and said, you tell them there is hope if we live with God. Let's raise this generation. Everybody that will, let's all come. Let's find us a place to pray. Melanie, just stop. While they play and sing, let's pray. And let's get this generation raised where God can use them.